I thought it was a simple marriage agreement, and we would go our separate ways when the agreement expired. However, she crossed the line. Do you want to leave me so badly? Obviously, I am your wife. Since you want to leave so badly then. The silver glint behind her stung my eyes. Later, I found out that I was actually her unrequited love. At the dinner table, I looked at the aloof Yin Ruashi and said expectantly, Ms. Yin, let's find some time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. The hand she used to pick up food paused slightly and then returned to normal. Why go to the Civil Affairs Bureau? I was confused. What does she mean? This expression doesn't look fake. Could this be the legendary case of a busy person with a bad memory? I put down my chopsticks and looked up at Yin Ruashi. Ms. Yin, the agreement is about to expire. Let's find a time to get a divorce. She looked calm, but her hand holding the chopsticks tightened slightly. Isn't there still a few days left? Her voice was still calm, without any other tones. This was very consistent with her personality. A cold and aloof female CEO. I rubbed my hands and replied to her a little excitedly. I thought you were busy recently, so it's better to go earlier anyway. We'll talk about it later. She interrupted me. Her tone was a little hurried. I'm done eating. I'm going back to my room. She got up and left. Looking at her back, I felt that she seemed a little hurried. I shook my head and mocked myself. How could it be possible? Probably something at the company is not going well. I stood up, cleaned up the table, and went back to my room. But I was on the first floor, and Yin Ruashi's room was on the second floor. We have been living our separate ways for the past 2 years, but in the past 6 months, Yin Ruashi has always been around my room. I have bumped into her several times, and she was a little flustered, saying that she was thirsty and got up to drink water. Of course, I don't believe it, but I didn't think much about it. I just thought it was a quirk of rich people. Although every time I would think in my heart, does she like me? But I dismissed this idea in an instant. Come on, I still have this self-awareness. A rich girl falls in love with a poor boy. This kind of plot that only appears in novels will not appear in reality, unless Yin Ruashi is crazy. But at present, she doesn't seem to be crazy. She's quite smart. Otherwise, how could she go to the same university as me? She and I were college classmates. When I was in my senior year, I started a business. 3 years ago, when it was just starting to pick up, my grandfather, who shared my fate, was diagnosed with cancer. As his only relative, I immediately sold my startup company, but the money was still not enough for the follow-up treatment costs. At that time, Yin Ruashi came to me and promised me that if I became her agreement husband for 2 years, she would give me $5 million as compensation. That's why she's the CEO. I immediately agreed to this deal, which was almost entirely in my favor. At that time, I was in desperate need of money to treat my grandfather's illness. The $5 million was like a lifeline, but it did not save me from a fire. In the 5th month after signing the agreement with her, my grandfather passed away. I was left alone. Alas, I'm thinking about the old days again. I'm so weak. I wiped my tears, covered myself with a blanket, and prepared to sleep. At this moment, a sound came from the door turning. Huh? Bouet? A piao? I turned on the light and walked towards the door. Opening it, I saw Yin Ruashi, looking like she had just showered. Her delicate skin was fair and rosy, her exquisite oval face now slightly flushed. Droplets of water still dripped from her hair, like a lotus flower emerging from the water. Jiang Chun, the shower head in my room is broken. Could I use yours? She glanced at me, then lowered her head. She was tall, but not as tall as me. From my height, a glance downwards revealed the majestic peaks, like a snowy winter scene. Damn it, forgot to turn off the auto-aim. I averted my gaze, looking at her in surprise. Doesn't the guest room have a shower too? She immediately raised her head, her expression still calm. Well, the guest room hasn't been used in a while. I'm not quite used to it. All right, go ahead. I'll sit in the living room for a while. I stepped aside, letting her go inside to shower. Thank you, she said, once again sparing with her words. I sat on the sofa in the living room and turned on my phone, planning to watch some videos. It was strange, over the past month, Yin Ruashi had become increasingly peculiar. She used to check on me every few days, but now she came directly to my room to shower. Something was off, very off. It made me suspect she might like me, but thinking about it, it seemed impossible. That reason didn't hold up, so what else could it be? A video on my phone played, shocking. A woman, to avoid paying rent, seduces her landlord, and then accuses him of rape, resulting in a 3-year sentence for the landlord. The woman saved 3 years of rent. Rent? Seriously? I couldn't help but think, 2 years for $5 million, she paid it year by year, and there was still $2.5 million left. She wouldn't want to skip out on that, would she? No wonder I'd often seen her coming back from the company lately with a cold expression. Could there be financial problems at the company? Did she not want to pay any more? The more I thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Otherwise, why hadn't she divorced me earlier? With her personality, she wouldn't care about a few extra days. A click sound interrupted my thoughts. The door opened. She came out wrapped in a bath towel. I quickly averted my gaze. Based on the situation, I increasingly felt she was trying to lure me into a crime to avoid paying. For a moment, I was captivated by the video, and after not releasing for so long, this fragrant scene made me a little excited. I quickly took a few deep breaths and spoke first. Ms. Yin, any troubles lately? Her motion of drying her hair paused, and she sat down not far from me. Why do you ask? Nothing. Well, I've noticed you haven't been in a good mood lately. I thought it might be something with the company. I shifted my butt over, trying to create some distance between us. For now, it seemed the company was fine, so skipping out on the payment was unlikely, but I still needed to observe further. Waking up in the morning, I felt energized for a new day. After throwing a few punches in the air, I shouted, "Awesome!" Humming a tune, I got dressed and opened the door. Today, I plan to head to the suburbs to look for a house, since my agreement with her would expire in 3 days. I certainly didn't want to be in a situation where she'd suddenly introduce a long-lost love and yell, "You loser, get out." That would be so embarrassing. It's better to leave early. But, come to think of it, she doesn't seem to have a first love. When we signed the agreement, she said it was because her family was pressuring her to get married. I shook my head, deciding to stop overthinking. What does it matter to me? She's just my boss. In 3 days, it's goodbye. However, as soon as I opened the door, I saw Yun Ruashi, also fully dressed, sitting on the sofa directly facing my room. She was looking at me. Her eyes held a complex mix of emotions that I couldn't quite decipher. I froze, then after a moment, awkwardly forced a smile. "Morning, President Yin, are you taking the day off?" Yun Ruashi stood up slightly, gently smoothing the corner of her clothes. "Yes, are you free today?" My heart skipped a beat. What? What does that mean? Does she want to terminate the contract early? That would be great. Various thoughts raced through my mind. "President Yin, what's up?" I tried to keep my voice calm. She slowly walked up to me, her gaze lingering on my face for a few seconds. "Let's have breakfast first. We can talk while we eat." I followed her to the dining room. Somewhat bewildered, the table was already laden with exquisite breakfast dishes. I enjoyed myself immensely. Free food is the best, and rich people's breakfast is really something else. Yin Ruashi seemed to see through my thoughts and sighed softly. "What are your plans for today?" I was thinking of going shopping. I put down my utensils and looked at her. "Well, I was planning to look for a house, but it's fine. President Yin, where do you want to go shopping?" "I'll accompany you." Yin Ruashi abruptly stopped drinking her milk and paused for a moment. "Do you really want to move out?" "I just don't want to intrude on your life." A hint of displeasure flashed in her eyes. "There's no intrusion. Just move when the time comes." For a moment, I couldn't grasp her mood. It was strange. This was the second time she had taken me shopping. The first time was when we were taking wedding photos, and she took one look at my unfashionable outfit and dragged me out. I had no idea why she suddenly wanted to go shopping, but as an employee, I was definitely obligated to fulfill my boss's requests. She was, after all, my meal ticket. After Yin Ruashi spoke, she just sat there, not eating. Most of the breakfast ended up in my stomach. When I looked up, I saw her gaze fixed on me. I felt a little awkward and chuckled sheepishly. Maybe I'm going through a second growth spurt. I'm quite the eater. Yin Ruashi didn't respond. She simply stood up quietly. "Let's go. Change your clothes, and we'll go shopping." I hurried back to my room and picked out a casual outfit. When I came out, Yin Ruashi was already waiting at the door. She was wearing a simple white dress today, her hair casually draped over her shoulders. She seemed less aloof than usual, and there was a surprisingly gentle air about her. I drove us. I had thought she would sit in the back, but she chose to sit in the passenger seat. She didn't speak, just quietly watched the traffic outside the window. A luxury car has its perks, people kept their distance, and we arrived at the city's most luxurious plaza without any holdups. I followed behind her, watching her walk towards the cinema. I was a little puzzled. Shouldn't we be heading to the clothing section? She seemed to sense my confusion and said softly, "I want to watch a movie. Can you get some popcorn?" The boss had spoken, so of course, I had to comply. No problem. After buying the popcorn, we entered the cinema. Sitting next to her, I realized I hadn't even asked her what movie we were seeing. It was strange, too. I'd never seen her watch a movie before. "What movie are we watching?" I asked, munching on popcorn and turning to her. It wasn't a bad idea to snack a little before the movie. Two people sitting together could be awkward. Asterisk before sunrise. Asterisk. The lights dimmed at that moment. I couldn't see the expression on her face clearly, but her voice sounded a little strange, like a heroine from a young adult tearjerker. I didn't get it. I knew this movie, though. It was about a chance encounter between two strangers who share their dreams, beliefs, and perspectives on life. They develop a deep emotional connection overnight, but ultimately have to face the reality of parting ways at dawn. It shows the immediacy and purity of love. I shrugged. Immediacy of love? Huh, dogs don't even believe that. Do you believe in the immediacy of love? Yun Ruashi turned to look at me, her gaze complex. I was completely baffled. We've been watching for 2 hours, and I've been mostly dozing, and she comes out with this? Seriously, would a cold-faced woman like you believe in the immediacy of love? Shouldn't you be killing off all immediate love for the sake of your beloved first love? But I still answered my boss's question honestly. No, it's just something to watch in movies. I don't believe it either. Let's go somewhere else. The movie credits rolled. The lights came on, like the breaking of dawn. Yun Ruashi walked straight to the exit. I hadn't even reacted yet, but seeing her leaving, I quickly grabbed the popcorn and followed her. She walks so fast, a true business-stylized queen. Outside the cinema, Yun Ruashi's pace slowed a little. She turned her head slightly and asked me, "Next, let's go get something to eat." I nodded eagerly and followed her to a stylish Western restaurant in the mall. The restaurant had soft lighting and soothing music. We sat opposite each other. Yun Ruashi expertly ordered the meal, while I sat there feeling a little awkward. While we waited for the food, she gently fiddled with the cutlery on the table and suddenly said, "Jiang Chun, sometimes I really envy those people in movies. They can express their emotions so freely." I looked at her, surprised, unsure of how to respond. Just then, the food arrived. I ate silently, pondering her unusual actions and words today. Yun Ruashi, however, ate very little. She didn't seem to be focused on the food at all. After dinner, we strolled through the mall again. Passing a jewelry store, Yun Ruashi stopped in front of the window, gazing at the dazzling jewelry. Her eyes were somewhat distant. I stood quietly beside her, not daring to interrupt. After a while, she turned to me and said, "Jiang Chun, what do you think someone should do if they suddenly realize their life is incomplete without another person?" My heart tightened. I had a faint feeling that her words were hinting at something, but I couldn't be sure. I carefully chose my words. Maybe they should examine their heart and see how important that person really is to them. Yun Ruashi sighed softly and didn't say anything else. We continued to wander around the mall, but I felt the air around us growing heavier. Yesterday, when we returned from the mall, Yun Ruashi, for once, had a bit to drink. Back home, she started getting handsy. Is this a common trait of people who drink? I, of course, righteously refused her. Seriously, women who can become CEOs, how many of them are simple? I don't want to end up with a state-sponsored job at a young age, sewing machine duty. Today is the class reunion. What is this, the first small gathering 5 years after graduation? The location happens to be in this city, and I happen to have time, so I have to go and take a look. I arrived at the Galaxy Hotel, took the elevator to the 6th floor, and even before reaching the private room, the boisterous sound from inside spilled out. Jiang Chun. Just as I reached the room, the class monitor spotted me. He wore the same warm smile as before and walked toward me. I still remember back in college, I was just an ordinary guy from the countryside, as ordinary as can be. Besides being good-looking, I had no other advantages. I rarely spoke to others in the class. Plus, I was studying economics, and the people in the class were either rich or noble. I estimated that few people would recognize me at this moment. Sure enough, apart from the class monitor, few people cast their gazes my way. Class monitor, long time no see, still looking so dashing. I went over and patted him on the shoulder. Back in college, he took good care of me. It's good that you came. Take a seat first. There will be an important guest appearing later. All right, I found a corner seat and sat down. Corners are good. You could just focus on eating. Just as I sat down, I heard a few people discussing, do you think the class beauty, Yin Ruashi, will come? A somewhat elitist-looking guy wearing glasses spoke. I couldn't recall his name for a moment, but I could name the somewhat chubby guy who was talking to him. He Xiaobao. His family had some influence. She's a big CEO, a busy person. How could she possibly come? He said gloomily. It seemed he had pursued Yin Ruashi back in college. I didn't pay much attention at the time. It was just hearsay. Sitting next to me was a sweet girl, cute-looking, from Sichuan province, Luo Shiyu. A member of my group back in college. I had a pretty deep impression of her. She looked at me. Jiang Chun, how's that company of yours doing? I smiled faintly. It went bankrupt long ago. I'm not cut out for that. I still have to be an employee. She was a little shocked. But I thought you were managing it quite well, how? Before she could finish, the class monitor interrupted. Classmates, look who's here. He gestured with one hand, guiding the person at the entrance. Like them, I looked over there, curious about who the guest was. It couldn't be Yun Ruashi, could it? I muttered in my heart. It's impossible. She's a busy person. Except for yesterday's crazy shopping trip. I haven't seen her go anywhere for fun. But when that person appeared, I was a little shocked. Yin Ruashi. Why did she come? She was wearing a white dress, simple yet elegant. Her exquisite face had light makeup, and her hair was slightly pinned up. Yin Ruashi's appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. She walked slowly with an elegant gait, as if she had her own light. The originally somewhat dejected face of Xiaobao instantly filled with a smile, and he hurried to greet her. Ruashi, you finally came. I thought you wouldn't grace us with your presence. Yin Ruashi just nodded slightly, polite but distant. Her gaze swept across the crowd, finally landing on me, a subtle flicker in her eyes. At this time, the class monitor came over enthusiastically and said, Yin Ruashi, come and sit here. Your presence today really adds luster to our class reunion. Yin Ruashi said a soft thank you, and then actually walked towards the corner where I was. She looked at Luo Shiyu beside me and said softly, Excuse me, may I sit here? I looked at the place she was pointing at. Wasn't that where someone was already sitting? No, what are you doing? Doesn't she need a seat? Luo Shiyu seemed to sense something and quickly got up, making way. No problem, you can sit. Everyone showed surprised looks, and I was equally shocked. Yin Ruashi, who usually doesn't like this kind of event, actually took the initiative to attend, which is a bit unlike her. She sat down next to me, leaned closer, and whispered, Did you come to the reunion just to meet Luo Shiyu? My water-drinking action paused, and I almost spit it out. What's wrong with Yin Ruashi coming straight out with that? She was a bit too close, and I shifted my position slightly. President Yin, this seems to be my private matter. When we signed the agreement, it was stated that we wouldn't interfere in each other's private affairs after the time was up. It's a bit unusual for Yin Ruashi to say this right away. Her hand, originally holding the cup, unconsciously tightened slightly. I faintly sensed her emotional fluctuation and only heard her say, We are not yet divorced. In my opinion, you should put me first. I couldn't help but be a little stunned, my heart filled with confusion about her words, wondering why she suddenly cared so much about this. Okay, President Yin, I didn't think it through. I quickly spoke softly, fearing she would cause more trouble. This reunion didn't have the expected scenes of showing off and slapping faces, but Yin Ruashi was becoming increasingly unusual. Eat some of this. She put a piece of meat in my bowl, then looked at Luo Shiyu subtly. The action was very secretive, but I still noticed it. Even if I were stupid, I could tell at this moment that she likes me. That's right, one of the 3 great illusions of life. The classmates at the same table saw her giving me food, their expressions gossipy, their eyes scanning back and forth between me and Yin Ruashi. President Yin, I can do it myself. Who knew she would lean closer to my ear and say softly, Isn't it natural for a wife to give her husband food? Oh my ears are going to get pregnant. The voice was a little seductive, and I unconsciously shrank my neck. I turned my head and found a deep smile hidden in her eyes. When I got home, it was already 8 or 9 o'clock. I had no idea what had gotten into Yunruashi. At the gathering, she was acting all wifely, and then there was all that drinking. Her cheeks were flushed with a captivating blush, and her eyes had become misty and dreamy. I carried her back to the room and looked at her drunken state. I shook my head. Seriously, drinking so much with strange men around. Does she trust me that much? After taking off her shoes, I simply wiped her face. I was just about to cover her with the blanket when she suddenly grabbed my arm. I was bending over to cover her, and with her pull, I fell directly onto her. Hey, you can't blame me for this. You're the one who made a move. Don't come looking for trouble when you wake up. I hurriedly spoke, tried to explain myself to her sleeping form. She clung to me like an octopus, holding me tight. Her pretty face nuzzled close to my neck, and I felt a warm, moist sensation. My heart skipped a beat. What was going on? She murmured softly, "Don't go, I need you." I heard that, and so she mistook me for someone else. What a relief. I slowly pried her arms off, tucked her in, and closed the door. Standing in the living room, looking at the twinkling stars through the French windows, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Just one more day, then I could get the money and get out of here. Maybe I should look at houses tomorrow, I encouraged myself. When the sunlight pierced through the window and landed on me, I felt it then that I was alive. Another beautiful day. After tomorrow, I too shall find a sweet romance. It feels like a lifetime's loss not to experience it. After washing up, I checked the time, 9:30. Yun Ruashi should be at work by now. Woo, taking off. But opening the door, I was dumbfounded again. Yun Ruashi was still sitting in the living room, her gaze fixed straight on me. CEO Yun, are you going to work? Today's not the weekend, you know. I looked at her, speaking easily. Perhaps it was because I would be free after today, but my voice couldn't help but carry a hint of joy. You're very happy? She had put on light makeup today and was dressed in casual clothes, looking a bit like the girl next door if you ignore the icy expression on her face. I'm going to look at houses today. The weather's pretty good. Haha. I sidestepped the topic, not wanting to add to my boss's troubles. I'll go with you. I happen to know some real estate developers, she said, standing up, her voice cool. Hearing this, I froze. How could I possibly let her come along? What if someday her beloved found out my location and came to kill me? I was about to refuse, but she didn't give me the chance. She walked over, took my hand, and let me out the door. The physical contact had noticeably increased these past few days. Very unusual. I was still driving, heading steadily towards the suburbs, where there was a lot of real estate development. Actually, you don't have to move so quickly. I usually live alone, so you wouldn't be disturbing me. She broke her usual pattern, speaking softly. Although she was looking out the window, her voice still reached my ears. The agreement's expired, so I have to leave. What if CEO Yin brings someone home one day and it's not good for them to see me? I carefully chose my words, afraid of angering this temperamental person. I don't have any other friends of the opposite sex, she stated coldly. Perhaps because today was the last day, I unusually viewed Yun Ruashi from the perspective of a friend. Does CEO Yun have someone she likes abroad? I struck up a conversation, not wanting to leave things awkward. In the country, she said, turning to look at me, her gaze somewhat fervent. Then why didn't CEO Yun find him when we signed the agreement? I was a bit curious. Her reason back then was that her family was pressuring her, but after we got the marriage certificate, she didn't go to see her family. Instead, she took my marriage certificate. All right, she still hasn't returned it to me. She looked at me. Before she could finish, a car driving normally ahead suddenly changed lanes and sped straight towards us, showing no signs of slowing down. Instinctively, I steered the wheel to the right. But in this critical moment, Yun Ruashi, as if driven by some mysterious force, swiftly reached out her hand. Her fingers clamped down on mine like iron tongs. Her hand was ice cold and trembling slightly, yet it carried an irresistible force, wrenching the steering wheel I had turned to the right back to the left. In an instant, a deafening bang resonated, a sound like the thunder god roaring furiously beside my ears, causing them to ring. The out-of-control car, like a wild beast that had lost its mind, slammed into us. The car shook violently. I felt a dizzying sensation, as if the whole world was collapsing at this moment, and my consciousness gradually sank into a chaotic void. When I woke up again, I was lying in the hospital. Thanks to the reinforced car Yin Ruashi was driving, I only suffered minor injuries. Thinking of Yin Ruashi, I hurried to get up. At the moment of the car accident, she put herself in a dangerous position, and I felt unspeakable. I asked the nurse for Yin Ruashi's room and walked in. She was lying on the bed, her face a little pale. The doctor said it was not very serious, but she still needed some time to rest. I looked at her pale but still delicate face, and for a moment I didn't know what I was thinking. If the vehicle had not been reinforced, would she have died? If I hadn't been chatting while driving, would this have happened? It was clearly just a contractual marriage, so why was she risking her life? My mind was in turmoil, and for a moment I couldn't find a reason. People are like this. The more you want to give something, the more they don't want it. But when it's time to lose it, they start to hesitate. Hesitation? Maybe. A teenager will remember a beautiful girl for the rest of his life. And a middle-aged uncle will also be deeply impressed by a lady's casual lighting of a cigarette. Now, Yin Ruashi has succeeded. She has succeeded in making me remember her. As long as I drive in the future, I will inevitably think of her, this woman who gave me the chance to live. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but from her behavior in the past 6 months, I have to admit a fact. She is interested in me. It's just that I don't want to be the third party. I couldn't ask before, and now that I can finally know the reason, this happened again. Let's take it one step at a time and take care of her until she is discharged from the hospital. I still have that bit of conscience. A few hours later, she woke up slowly. She stared at me without blinking, seemingly relieved. I looked at her expression and couldn't help but say, "Do you want to contact your parents? Don't worry, I will take care of you until you are discharged from the hospital." She shook her head and then spoke softly. I don't have any. Okay, the doctor said you should try not to talk and get a good rest. I tucked her in and got up to prepare some dinner for her. Time slipped away. Half a month later, she was discharged from the hospital. Back at the villa, I packed my things in a room. I had to leave eventually. After all, we'd been together for over 2 years. Consider it a friendship. I'd asked her before why she didn't sign the agreement with the person she liked, but she hadn't said a word, just looked at me quietly. Of course, I wasn't arrogant enough to think that the person she had liked before was me. After all, in the 4 years of college, I hardly spoke to her. My luggage was simple, containing only a few sets of ordinary clothes and the precious photo of my grandfather and me, a memento of our cherished memories. I carefully placed each item into the suitcase and gently closed the door. With that soft click, this chapter of my life, defined by a contract, was drawing to a close. I was ready and eager to embark on a new, unknown journey. Entering the living room, I found her sitting silently on the sofa, not a word spoken. The surrounding air seemed to thicken slightly with her silence. Under my diligent care over the past days, her health had gradually improved. The once paper-white complexion now showed a faint hint of red, like the first touch of green blooming on a branch after a harsh winter, subtle yet full of vitality. I had thought she would go to the company after recovering, but to my surprise, she quietly followed me back here. She slowly stood up, her gaze fixed on me, and said softly, "Leaving now? Look at you, you're sweating. Have some water." I nodded slightly, took the glass she offered, and drank it down. Indeed, after all the running around, my throat was parched. After finishing the water, I placed the glass back gently, then pulled my suitcase and walked firmly towards the door while looking back at her and saying, "Let's go, Ruashi. The Civil Affairs Bureau should be open by now." She still didn't respond, just stared at me intently, silently. However, for some reason, at the moment our eyes met, my body suddenly felt unwell. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and the world began to spin uncontrollably like a runaway top. Before I fainted, I saw Yun Ruashi's calm face, and her slightly reddened eyes, a glimmer of madness in her gaze. "It's over," was my last thought. When I woke up again, my head was still heavy, like a lump of paste, my thoughts slow and muddled. All around me was an endless, inky blackness, thick as ink, wrapping me in its suffocating embrace. Yet, I could clearly feel myself lying in bed, my nostrils filled with that familiar, her scent. I struggled to sit up, and the instant my wrist moved, a crisp, clear chain sound suddenly echoed through the silent room. The noise was like a thunderclap, instantly clearing my previously dizzy head. Wait, what's going on? Imprisonment? I suppressed my bewilderment and suspicion, raising my voice to call out, Ruah, she. Click! A sharp sound broke the silence, and a piercing light instantly illuminated the room, slicing through the dense, heavy darkness like a blade. Yun Ruah, she entered, her steps light and graceful. However, her attire was drastically different from her usual wear. She was draped in a sheer gauze, thin as cicada wings, her delicate, fair skin faintly visible beneath the fabric, inviting the imagination. And behind her, a bright, silvery light glinted, stinging my eyes. Ruashi, what's going on? Are we playing a game? I forced a smile, trying to ease the slightly tense and oppressive atmosphere with this joke. But she seemed not to hear, her steps unhurried, slowly approaching me. Coming close, her cherry-red lips parted slightly, her voice carrying a barely perceptible tremor and a hint of resentment. Jiang Chun, why do you always want to leave me? When, clearly, we are husband and wife. She slowly placed her hand on my face, caressing it gently. The movement was soft, but her words made me break out in a cold sweat. Wait, isn't this just like a Yandere scene from a novel? Ruashi, we only have an agreement. If your white moonlight finds out, how can he still like you? I quickly spoke up, interrupting her movement. Her hand had already moved to my stomach. Why don't you understand? It's always been you that I love. She leaned close to my ear, her voice gentle, yet it exploded like thunder in my heart. What the hell? Are you kidding me? No, Ruashi, this is no joke. I was starting to sweat profusely. It's okay, you'll soon witness my sincerity. After she finished speaking, she put an unknown blue pill into my mouth. It's over. After our intimate moment, she lay beside me, tracing circles on my chest with her finger. Now, do you believe me? Her face was flushed with a captivating blush, her gaze lost in mine. I stared at the plum blossom mark, my mind a blank. Why did you do this? We don't even know each other, as I recall. I couldn't understand her motive. It was beyond my comprehension. So, you really have forgotten, she murmured, a hint of melancholy in her eyes. What is this, some classic trope? Poor boy saves rich girl from kidnappers, and the rich girl returns the favor when she grows up? I looked into her eyes, voicing my speculation. Do you know how I got this scar? She pulled back the covers, revealing her flawless body. I noticed a scar on her shoulder, resembling a burn. Ow! My mind was completely baffled. Red Star Orphanage. Little flower, she whispered softly. When I heard that, holy crap, it really is a cliché storyline. Damn, I actually lived through that. I had spent time at the Red Star Orphanage before Grandpa adopted me. Is this fate? How did you recognize me? I turned my head to look at the opposite wall. Of course, I investigated you. It might sound fantastical, but I've always remembered you. Do you know? I could have endured the darkness if I had never seen the light. When my family found me, they already had 2 other children. They didn't care about a lost girl like me. Returning there, apart from having enough to eat and warm clothes to wear, they didn't cherish me and saw me as bad luck. But it didn't matter because Grandma cared about me. So, step by step, I tripped them up. Now I have so much money. Please, don't leave me, okay? As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. I sighed. Remarried parents, favoring boys over girls. Talk about hitting all the cliches. Then why didn't you say something sooner? I looked at her, puzzled. Because I'm sick. Every time I saw you, I had this uncontrollable urge to lock you up. Ife said that's not equal in love, so I've been undergoing treatment. It got better 2 years ago, and that's when I found you. It's just that when I was about to leave just now, I really couldn't hold back anymore. She lowered her head, like a child who had done something wrong. Suddenly, she lifted her head again, a light flickering in her eyes. Brother Chun, I secretly went to see Grandpa. I told him I was your wife. Grandpa was so happy and told me to treat you well. She tilted her head slightly, like a child seeking praise. You know, when I saw you talking to Luo Shiyu, I almost lost control of myself. She lowered her head again, tears swirling in her eyes. So, I decided I had to be a little crazy, or else you would really leave. I don't know why you always think I might have someone else I like, but I've always liked you. You are my Bai Guang. Brother Chun, don't leave me, okay? She hugged me, her tears falling on my chest like fire, scorching my soul. I was stunned, unsure how to respond. From wanting to leave after the agreement ended to the mixed emotions now, my feelings were like a roller coaster. Buddha said it takes 100 lifetimes to share a boat ride and 1,000 lifetimes to share a pillow. Perhaps this is destiny.